The fluorescent lights in the ER were still buzzing above my head when I picked up my phone at 2 a.m. and saw it. My sister's Facebook post. A selfie. Full smile, glass of wine, #blessed. The caption read, "Finally, a day without the drama queen." 47 likes. 3 laughing emojis from my mother's account. I was lying in a hospital bed with an IV in my arm because I'd collapsed mid-shift. The hospital called my parents. They never came. But it turns out that post was the least of what my family was doing behind my back. Because while I was working doubles to keep a roof over their heads, my own father had stolen my identity, and my 7-year-old daughters, to feed a debt I didn't know existed. And they were 2 weeks away from having me declared legally incompetent to take everything I owned. What I did next started with one phone call, and by the end of the month, they were the ones without a home. Before I go on, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with this story. And if you want, drop your location and your local time in the comments. I love knowing where you're listening from. My name is Donna. I'm 33. I'm a night shift nurse and a single mom to a 7-year-old named Lily. And this is what happened when I stopped being the person everyone could take from. Now let me take you back to a Tuesday evening in October, the night my body finally gave out. The hallway at Ridgemont County Hospital smelled like floor wax and stale coffee. I was 14 hours into a shift that was only supposed to be 10. Carla, the other night nurse, had called out with the flu. So I stayed. I always stayed. My hands had started shaking around hour 11, not the kind of shaking you notice. The kind you hide. You press your palms flat against the med cart. You grip the pen a little harder. You breathe through the tremor and chart one more patient. By hour 13, the fluorescent lights had a halo around them. My vision swam at the edges. I told myself it was just the lighting. By hour 14, I was walking down the east corridor toward the nurse's station with a stack of intake forms. My knees buckled first. Then the floor came up fast. I don't remember hitting the ground. I remember the sound. The forms scattering, a shoe squeaking on tile, someone yelling my name. Then the ceiling tiles counting them. 1, 2, 3, the oxygen mask. Severe dehydration, chronic fatigue collapse. That's what the ER attending wrote on my chart. They wanted to keep me overnight for observation and fluids. I didn't argue. I couldn't. Lying in that bed, I stared at my phone. The hospital's emergency contact protocol had already kicked in. They'd called my father, Gerald Paxton. No answer. They'd called my mother, Patricia. Voicemail. I thought about Lily, asleep at home. My mother was supposed to be watching her. She usually did on my night shifts, but no one had called me back to confirm anything. I reached for my phone to text my mother. That's when I saw the Facebook notification. Danielle Marie Paxton, my younger sister, 28 years old. The post was timestamped 40 minutes after the hospital called our parents. The photo was a selfie. Danielle on the living room couch, my couch, in my house, holding a glass of red wine. Full smile. No filter needed when you're that pleased with yourself. The caption read, "Finally, a day without the drama queen." 47 likes. I scrolled through them. Names I recognized. Karen from the church prayer group. Mike, who ran the hardware store. Janine, my mother's walking partner. People from Ridgemont. People who knew me. One comment stood out. Brenda Hollister, who lived 2 streets over. Is she being dramatic again? Danielle's reply. You have no idea. I kept scrolling. 3 laughing face reactions at the top. I tapped to see who. The third one was my mother, Patricia Paxton, a laughing emoji, while her oldest daughter was lying in a hospital bed alone. I set the phone face down on the thin hospital blanket. I didn't cry. I looked at the ceiling tiles again. This wasn't new. That's the part that sat heaviest. Every time I got sick, every time I asked for help, every time my body showed any sign of breaking under the weight I carried, the word was always the same. Dramatic. The first time I collapsed 2 years ago, my father didn't even come upstairs. He said it from the kitchen doorway. Nurses don't collapse. You just want attention. I picked the phone back up and screenshot the post. I don't know why. Instinct, maybe. Or maybe some part of me already knew I'd need it. But that Facebook post? That was just the wound I could see. The real damage was in places I hadn't thought to look yet. They discharged me the next morning at 7:15. I drove myself home. 30 minutes on Route 9 with the window cracked because the car heater made me dizzy. The October air was sharp and wet and it kept me upright. I pulled into the driveway of 412 Maple Lane, the house my grandmother Helen left me when she passed 12 years ago. A 3-bedroom Cape Cod with a leaning mailbox and a porch that needed painting. The deed, filed at the county recorder's office, read one name: Donna Marie Paxton, sole owner. Fee, simple, absolute. I walked through the front door. Gerald sat in the recliner, watching a morning talk show. He glanced up, glanced back at the screen. "You look fine. Don't make a thing out of it." In the kitchen, my mother stood at the stove, stirring oatmeal. She didn't turn around. "There's coffee if you want it." Danielle was on the sofa, scrolling her phone. She didn't look up at all. I stood in the hallway of my own house and waited. 3 seconds. 5. Nobody asked. Nobody said, "Are you okay?" Nobody said anything. I went upstairs. Lily was sitting on her bed, already dressed for school, her backpack on. She threw her arms around me. "Mama, Grandpa said you were just tired." "I'm okay, baby," I said. "Let me change and I'll take you." I held her for a long time. Then I set her down and looked around the room. Her small room in the house my grandmother gave me. The house where my family lived rent-free because I believed that's what family meant. Standing in that hallway, I felt like a guest in my own home. On the kitchen table, I'd noticed a white envelope. Return address, the county courthouse. It was addressed to Gerald Paxton. I didn't open it. It wasn't my mail. But I remembered it. I didn't know what that envelope was about. Not yet. But I would. And when I did, it changed everything. 1 week later, I was back at work. Reduced hours, the charge nurse insisted. My body was recovering. My mind was not. The hospital's billing department needed updated financial information for my ER visit, insurance verification, payment plan options, the usual paperwork. The billing coordinator, a woman named Janet, suggested I check my credit report to make sure everything was current. "Just in case there are any liens or issues with your insurance claims," she said. I'd never checked my credit report, not once in 33 years. I didn't have credit card debt. I didn't have a car loan. I owned my house outright. There was nothing to check, or so I thought. That evening, I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot with my laptop balanced on the steering wheel. I went to annualcreditreport.com and pulled all 3 bureaus. The number hit me first. Credit score? 520. That couldn't be right. I had no debt. I paid my bills on time. I'd never missed a payment on anything in my life. Then I saw them. 3 credit card accounts I'd never opened. One with a $22,000 balance, one with $14,500, one with $10,500, total $47,000. All opened within the last 3 years. Minimum payments made for a few months on each, then nothing. Delinquent. Sent to collections. My hands were shaking again. Not from fatigue this time. I called the number listed for First Union Bank. A man named Russell Briggs answered, senior credit analyst at the Ridgemont branch. I verified my identity. Date of birth, last 4 of my social, mother's maiden name. "Ma'am," he said, and paused. "The applications were submitted using your social security number. The billing address on all 3 is your home address." I knew whose handwriting that was before I even opened the attachment. Russell emailed me the scanned applications that night. I opened them sitting in the parking lot of a McDonald's because I didn't want to be in the house when I looked. The signature on the first application leaned hard to the right. The capital P in Paxton had that small curl at the top, a habit my father never broke. I'd watched him sign birthday cards, school permission slips, and church donation envelopes with that same hand for 30 years. Gerald Raymond Paxton. He hadn't even tried to imitate my handwriting. He'd just signed his name on my life and assumed I'd never look. I sat in that parking lot for 10 minutes. Engine off, screen glowing in the dark. $47,000. That was almost 2 years of my take-home pay after taxes. Money I never borrowed, money I never spent, money that was now destroying my credit score while I worked doubles to keep the lights on in a house my family treated like theirs. I thought back. Gerald lost his plumbing job 6 years ago, said his back gave out, filed for disability but got denied. He was home all day after that. I'd see him on the laptop late at night. I thought he was reading the news, watching YouTube, whatever retired fathers did. Now I understood what those late nights were. I picked up the phone and called Maggie Colton. We'd been roommates junior year at Ohio State before she went to law school, and I went to nursing school. She practiced real estate and property law in Grover City, 30 minutes east. We hadn't talked in a few months. I didn't waste time on small talk. Maggie, I need help. I think my father stole my identity. She was quiet for 2 seconds. Then, don't confront him. Don't mention it. Come to my office tomorrow morning. Bring everything. Before she hung up, she said one more thing. Donna, check your daughter's credit too. I froze. That night I waited until Lily was asleep. I tucked the blanket around her shoulders, closed her door halfway the way she liked it, and went to my room. Checking credit for a minor isn't like pulling your own report. You have to contact each bureau directly. Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, with the child's social security number, a copy of their birth certificate, and your ID as the parent. I started the process online. One bureau had a result within the hour. A credit card, opened 6 months ago, in the name of Lily Marie Paxton. Balance, $1,200. I closed the laptop, slowly. I set it on the nightstand and stared at Lily's door down the hall. She was 7. She could barely write her own name in cursive. And someone had used her social security number, a number I kept in a locked file box in my bedroom closet, to open a line of credit. I got up and went to the closet. The file box was there. The lock was intact. But when I opened it, I noticed gaps. My original birth certificate? Gone. My old social security card? Gone. Lily's social security card was still there, but someone had handled the folder recently. The papers were out of order. You can take from me. You can call me dramatic. You can laugh at me on the internet while I'm lying in an emergency room. But you do not touch my child. That is the line. There is no second chance after that line. I didn't go downstairs. I didn't scream. I sat on the edge of my bed and made a list. Credit reports, deed, Lily's birth certificate, scanned signatures, everything Maggie needed, and that envelope from the county court. I still hadn't found out what it said. Maggie's office was above a dry cleaner on Main Street in Grover City. Small town lawyer, small town office. But the woman behind the desk was anything but small. She read through my credit reports in silence, making notes in the margins with a red pen. This is textbook familial identity theft, she said. Federal crime. All 3 applications used your social, your address, and a forged signature. I handed her my phone with the photo I'd taken of the courthouse envelope on Gerald's kitchen table. She studied the return address. You didn't open it? It's not my mail. Smart. She turned to her computer and pulled up the county court's public docket, typed in my name, scrolled, stopped. I watched her face change, not dramatically. Maggie was never dramatic, but her jaw tightened by a fraction. Donna. She turned the screen toward me. Your father filed a petition for guardianship over you, 2 weeks ago. I read the screen. Petition for guardianship of Donna Marie Paxton, filed by Gerald R. Paxton. The stated reason. Respondent has a documented history of medical episodes consistent with diminished mental capacity. Under the section for supporting witnesses, one name, Danielle Paxton. The petition was filed 3 days after my last hospitalization. 3 days. They'd been waiting for me to collapse so they'd have fresh paperwork. If this goes through, Maggie said quietly, your father becomes your legal guardian. He controls your finances. He can sell the house. My house. The house my grandmother left to me. The house where Gerald Paxton had lived rent-free for 12 years while stealing my identity and gambling away $47,000 under my name. My own sister signed a sworn statement saying I was mentally unfit. The same sister who posted a selfie while I was in the ER. Maggie told me not to confront him. But that evening, standing in the kitchen of my own house, I needed to see his face when I asked. Not to expose him, just to know. Gerald was pouring coffee, his back to me. The TV murmured from the living room. Dad, have you ever used my social security number for anything? He didn't turn around. What kind of question is that? A straightforward one. He set the pot down, still facing the counter. No. Why would I? I checked my credit today. 5 seconds of silence. He picked up his mug, took a sip, turned around slowly. His face was flat, practiced. Credit reports have errors all the time. Don't get worked up. 3 cards, $47,000. His eyes flickered, just for a half second, then steadied. I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't appreciate the accusation. My mother appeared in the doorway. She must have been listening from the hall. What's going on? Gerald cut in before I could answer. She's starting again. Patricia looked at me with that particular expression, the one she wore when she wanted me to feel like the problem. Please don't do this tonight. We just had dinner. I looked at my mother. Did you know? Know what? Donna, you're scaring me. I held her eyes for a long moment. Then I stood up from the table. Okay. I walked to the stairs. I was 4 steps up when I heard it. Gerald's voice, low, almost a hiss, directed at Patricia. She's digging. We need to move faster. He didn't know I could hear, and he didn't know I already knew what they were moving toward. The next morning, I was packing Lily's lunch, turkey sandwich, apple slices, juice box, when my phone rang. Danielle. I answered. Hey. Her voice was soft, concerned. The performance had already started. I heard you were upset about some credit stuff? Dad told me. Did he? Look, everyone's worried about you. After the hospital thing, maybe you should take a break, like, really talk to someone. You mean a therapist, to prove I'm unstable? A pause. She recovered quickly. I mean someone who can help. Danny, did you sign a document at the county courthouse 2 weeks ago? The pause this time was longer. I could hear her breathing shift. That was just in case. Dad said it was to protect you. Protect me from what? From yourself, Donna. You collapsed at work, twice in 3 years. You can't keep going like this. I closed Lily's lunchbox. Click. I collapsed because I work 70 hours a week to keep a roof over all 4 of you, in my house. It's the family's house. Read the deed, Danny. She hung up. Lily came downstairs with her backpack. Who was on the phone, Mama? Aunt Danny. Is she coming over? No, baby. Let's get you to school. I drove Lily to Ridgemont Elementary and watched her walk through the doors. Then I sat in the car for a minute, gripping the steering wheel. 10 minutes later, Gerald called. I let it ring through to voicemail. His voice was tight, controlled, the way it got when he was cornered. You need to stop this nonsense, girl. I'm your father. Everything I've done is for this family. If you push this, you won't have a family left. And I already told Pastor Avery we're having a family meeting Sunday. To sort this out. Together, the way families do. I saved the voicemail. I was going to need it. 2 days later, I was back in Maggie's office. She had the deed spread out on her desk beside a property title search she'd run overnight. Donna Marie Paxton, sole owner, fee simple absolute, she read aloud. No co-owners, no liens, except the fraudulent credit accounts, which we'll have removed once the identity theft report processes. No mortgage, clean title. So I can sell it. You can sell it today if you want. You don't need anyone's permission. They've lived there 12 years. Can they claim anything? Maggie leaned back. Did they ever pay rent? No. Is there a lease, written or verbal agreement? No, they're my parents. I just let them stay. Then legally, they're licensees. You can revoke that license with 30 days written notice. Ohio law doesn't require more than that for non-tenants without a lease. I sat with that for a moment. 12 years of open doors, and legally, they had less right to that house than a month-to-month renter. Maggie gave me the name of a realtor in Grover City, not Ridgemont, where gossip traveled faster than the mail. I met her the following afternoon. Her name was Lynn Draper. She walked through 412 Maple Lane while my family was out. Gerald at his Tuesday card game, Patricia at the church, Danielle at work. Lynn took photos, measured rooms, and checked the roof from the driveway. I'd listed at 185, she said. Solid neighborhood, good bones. I signed the listing agreement in her car, but I told her to hold it. Don't put it on the MLS yet. When? She asked. I'll tell you when. The house was ready to go, but I needed one more thing before I could move. The next morning, I filed identity theft reports on identitytheft.gov. One for me, one for Lily. The FTC assigned case numbers within minutes. I printed the confirmations and drove to the Ridgemont Police Department. Officer Dale Harris was at the front desk, mid-40s, crew cut, a calm face that had probably heard worse. I laid the credit reports, the scanned applications with Gerald's handwriting, and the FTC confirmation numbers on the counter. I need to file a report for identity theft, I said. The person who did it is my father. He lives in my house. Harris looked at the paperwork, looked at me, nodded once. Have a seat, ma'am. This'll take about an hour. It took an hour and 20 minutes. He documented everything, gave me a case number and his direct line. That afternoon, Maggie filed a motion to dismiss the guardianship petition at the county court. She attached two things. First, a letter from my personal physician, Dr. Annette Rourke, confirming that my hospitalizations were caused by physical exhaustion and dehydration, not mental illness, not cognitive impairment, not diminished capacity. Second, the identity theft report, establishing that Gerald had a direct financial motive to gain control of my assets. The judge will see this before the hearing date, Maggie said. It's strong. That night, I listened to Gerald's voicemail one more time. His voice played through my earbuds while Lily slept down the hall. If you push this, you won't have a family left. And I already told Pastor Avery we're having a family meeting Sunday to sort this out, together, the way families do. He wanted a public meeting. He wanted the church behind him. He wanted 25 witnesses to see his unstable daughter fall apart. Fine. I'd give him his meeting. Okay, I need to pause here for a second, because I know what some of you might be thinking. Why didn't I just confront my father directly and handle this privately? And honestly, I tried. You heard that conversation in the kitchen. He looked me in the eyes and lied. My mother pretended she didn't understand. My sister told me I needed professional help, the same sister who signed a court document to have me declared incompetent. So let me ask you this. If your father opened a credit card under your 7-year-old daughter's name, would you keep it in the family? Tell me in the comments. Now, back to the story. Because Sunday was coming. Sunday came cold and bright. Ridgemont Community Church sat at the end of Oakwood Drive, white clapboard, narrow steeple, a gravel parking lot that crunched under every tire. I'd been baptized there. Lily had been baptized there. My grandmother Helen's funeral had been held in the front pew 12 years ago. After the morning service, Gerald stood up near the coffee table in the fellowship hall and announced that the family was hosting a potluck gathering. Most of the congregation stayed. He'd been working the room all week. I learned this later. Phone calls, private conversations after Wednesday prayer group. We're worried about Donna. She hasn't been herself. We'd appreciate your support. 25 people arranged their folding chairs in a loose circle on the linoleum floor. Metal legs scraping tile. The fluorescent lights hummed the same pitch as the ones in the ER. I noticed that. Pastor Tom Avery sat at the head of the circle, Bible on his knee, looking like a man who'd agreed to referee something he didn't fully understand. Gerald sat across from him. Pressed shirt, serious expression, the concerned patriarch. Patricia was beside him, eyes already red, tissue in her hand, ready. Danielle sat to their left, arms crossed, jaw tight. I walked in with Lily. She was carrying a coloring book and a box of crayons. I found 2 chairs near the door and sat down. 25 faces turned toward me, some with sympathy, some with curiosity, a few with the particular look people get when they've already decided what they're seeing. Gerald cleared his throat and stood. Thank you all for being here. As some of you know, our Donna has been going through a difficult time. He swept his gaze across the room. She's been in the hospital twice. She's been under a lot of stress. Pat and we're worried. We want to make sure she gets the help she needs. Patricia dabbed her eyes with the tissue. On cue. We just love her so much. A murmur of sympathy rippled through the chairs. I watched heads nod. Glenda Morrison, 70 years old and sitting near the window, pressed her hand to her chest. Ted Buckley, mid-50s, leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. The room was tilting Gerald's direction, and he knew it. He continued, voice steady, measured. The voice of a man who'd rehearsed this. I know this is hard to hear, But Donna has been making some irrational decisions lately, accusing family members of crimes. He paused to let that word land. Threatening to sell the family home. The murmur grew louder. I felt the weight of it. 25 people recalibrating who I was in their minds. Ted Buckley shook his head slowly. Maybe she does need someone looking out for her. Gerald nodded. Grateful, humble, perfectly calibrated. The court needs to know that the community sees what we see. That she needs someone to help manage her affairs. Just temporarily, until she's better. Danielle uncrossed her arms long enough to wipe her eyes. Her mascara didn't run. I noticed that too. I sat still. Lily colored beside me, a purple house with a yellow sun. The sound of her crayon on paper was the only honest thing in that room. Pastor Avery shifted in his chair. He looked at Gerald, then at me. Something in his expression was still unsettled. Gerald, he said carefully, has Donna agreed to this meeting? Gerald spread his hands. She's here, isn't she? Avery turned to me. Donna, would you like to say anything? I looked up from Lily's drawing. 25 pairs of eyes, the fluorescent hum, the smell of coffee and sheet cake. Yes, I said. I would. Before I could stand, Danielle cut in. See? She turned to the room, palms up. She's doing it again, making everything about her. Patricia let out a small sob, louder than the last one. I can't watch my daughter destroy herself. Gerald seized the momentum. He turned his back to me and faced the circle, voice dropping to that low, steady register he used when he wanted to sound like the reasonable one. This is exactly what we're talking about. She can't handle basic conversations without getting confrontational. We're not trying to hurt her. We're trying to help. Murmurs of agreement. A woman from the prayer group, Karen Dietrich, reached across and squeezed Patricia's hand. You're doing the right thing, Pat. Ted Buckley nodded again. Seems like it's been building for a while. I looked around the room. 25 people who had known me my entire life, who had watched me grow up in this church. And they were looking at me the way you look at someone who's slipping, with pity and distance and relief that it's not them. Glenda Morrison caught my eye from the window. Her face was harder to read. She wasn't nodding. I looked down at Lily. She'd finished the purple house and was starting on flowers. Green stems, red petals, her tongue poking out in concentration. Every second I stayed quiet, it worked. Gerald's version became the truth by default. The concerned father, the unstable daughter, the family just trying to help. I'd spent 33 years being quiet, being manageable, being the one who absorbs and adjusts and makes no trouble. That was the version of me they'd built this trap around. I stood up. I didn't raise my voice. I've learned that the quietest person in the room is usually the one holding the truth. I reached into my bag and set a manila folder on the table in front of me. The room went still, not silent. You could hear the coffee maker gurgling in the corner, Lily's crayon on paper, the faint creak of a folding chair, but every voice stopped. I'm glad everyone is here, I said, because there are a few things this community should know. I opened the folder and pulled out the first document, held it up so the room could see the county seal. This house, the house my family lives in, is mine, sole owner. My grandmother Helen left it to me 12 years ago. This is the deed. I set it flat on the table. My name, only my name. Gerald's mouth opened. Nothing came out. My father, my mother, and my sister have lived in my house rent-free for 12 years. I never asked for $1. I pulled the next page. The credit report, all 3 bureaus highlighted in yellow where the fraudulent accounts appeared. 3 credit cards were opened in my name without my knowledge or consent. Total debt, $47,000. I set down the scanned applications beside the report. The signatures on these applications are my father's handwriting. A sound moved through the room, not a gasp exactly, but the collective inhale of 25 people recalculating what they thought they knew. Gerald stood. That's a lie. The bank confirmed it, I said. I have a case number from the FTC and a police report on file with the Ridgemont Police Department. I reached into the folder one more time. And 6 months ago, someone opened a credit card in the name of my 7-year-old daughter. $1,200. Glenda Morrison's hand went to her mouth. Pastor Avery turned slowly and looked at Gerald. The room had shifted. I could feel it, like the air pressure dropping before a storm. People who'd been leaning toward Gerald were sitting upright now. Karen Dietrich had pulled her hand away from Patricia's. I wasn't done. But that's not all my father has been doing. I kept my voice level. No tremor, no anger, just facts. 2 weeks after my last hospitalization, he filed a petition at the county courthouse to have me declared legally incompetent. I set the printed copy of the docket entry on the table. Public record. Maggie had obtained it from the court clerk. If this petition went through, my father would become my legal guardian. He would control my finances. I looked directly at Gerald. He could sell my house, the house he doesn't own, to pay debts he took out in my name. Gerald's face had gone from red to gray. He gripped the back of his chair. You're twisting everything. I was trying to protect you. You were trying to protect yourself. Patricia stood halfway up, tissue pressed to her face. Donna, please, not here. You chose here, Mom. Dad invited 25 people, so let them here. I turned to Danielle. She hadn't moved. Her arms were crossed so tightly her knuckles were white. And my sister signed this petition as a witness, stating under oath that I was mentally unfit. I held the page up so the room could see her signature. Tell them, Danny. Tell them how much Dad promised you from the sale. Danielle's mouth worked, but no sound came out. She looked at Gerald. He didn't look back. She looked at the floor. To my right, a chair scraped against linoleum. Ted Buckley, the man who'd said I needed someone looking out for me 5 minutes ago, picked up his folding chair, moved it 3 rows back, and sat down without a word. The silence that followed was the loudest sound I'd ever heard in that room. Pastor Tom Avery rose from his chair. He was a tall man, lean, with reading glasses he kept pushing up the bridge of his nose. He'd led this congregation for 19 years. He'd married couples and buried their parents and sat with families through every kind of grief. People trusted him. Gerald had counted on that. Gerald? Avery's voice was calm, but it carried the full weight of the room. I agreed to be here today because you told me Donna was in crisis. You told me she was a danger to herself. Gerald started. She is. I'm looking at a woman who brought documentation, Avery continued, as if Gerald hadn't spoken, who spoke calmly, who has not raised her voice once. He turned to face Gerald fully. And I'm looking at a father who stole his daughter's identity and his granddaughter's. He addressed the room. I think we all owe Donna an apology for being here under false pretenses. Glenda Morrison spoke next. Her voice was thick. Gerald Paxton, I've known you 30 years. Shame on you. Karen Dietrich pulled her chair 6 inches away from Patricia. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Patricia was crying now. Not the rehearsed kind, the real kind. The kind that comes when the audience you spent your whole life performing for finally sees backstage. Gerald's voice cracked for the first time. You don't understand. I was going to pay it back. I had a plan. Your plan was to sell my house, I said. He had nothing left. He stood there, 61 years old, in his pressed Sunday shirt, in a church where everyone had called him by his first name for 3 decades, and he had nothing. But I wasn't done, because there was one more thing I hadn't told them yet. One more thing. I reached into my bag. As of this morning, my house is listed for sale. The room rustled. Someone in the back whispered something I couldn't catch. Gerald's head snapped up. You can't do that. We live there. You live in my house, without a lease, without paying rent. I pulled 3 white envelopes from the folder and set them on the table, one in front of Gerald, one in front of Patricia, one in front of Danielle's empty chair. She'd gone rigid but hadn't left. My attorney has prepared 30-day written notice for all 3 of you. That's more than the law requires. Gerald stared at the envelope like it might detonate. Where are we supposed to go? I let that question sit in the air for a moment. I wanted every person in that room to hear it. That's the first time in 12 years you've had to answer that question. I've been answering it for you my entire adult life. Patricia clutched Gerald's arm. Donna, you can't throw your parents out on the street. I'm not throwing you out. I'm giving you 30 days' notice. In writing. I kept my voice steady. Which is more courtesy than you gave me when you tried to have me declared incompetent. Danielle stood up, grabbed her purse. Her chair tipped backward and clattered against the linoleum. She walked toward the door and said, just loud enough for the front row to hear, "This is insane." The door closed behind her. Nobody followed. I looked at Gerald. He was still holding the envelope. His hands shook slightly. Patricia was pressed against his shoulder, tears running mascara down her cheeks. I closed my folder. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt like a woman who'd just finished the hardest thing she'd ever done, standing in a church where she'd been baptized. I turned to Pastor Avery. "Thank you for your time, Pastor." He met my eyes. There was no pity in his face, just respect, and something that looked like sorrow for what had brought us here. "Donna, if you or Lily need anything, this church is here for you." I nodded. I looked down at Lily. She'd finished her coloring page. A purple house, yellow sun, green flowers. She held it up to show me, oblivious to everything that had just happened above her head. "Ready, baby? Can I bring the crayons?" "You can bring the crayons." I took her hand and walked toward the door. Glenda Morrison was standing near the exit. She reached out and took my free hand in both of hers. Her fingers were thin and warm. "Your grandmother Helen would be proud of you, sweetheart." My throat tightened. That was the first time all day. "Thank you, Mrs. Morrison." Outside, the October sun was low and gold. The gravel crunched under our shoes. Lily skipped ahead toward the car, coloring book tucked under her arm. "Mama, why was Grandpa upset?" I unlocked the car and opened her door. "Because things are going to be different now, baby. But different can be good." She considered this with the seriousness only a 7-year-old can manage. Then she climbed in and buckled herself. I sat in the driver's seat, started the engine, pulled out of the parking lot. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. But it was a different kind of tired. The kind that comes after you finally set down something you've been carrying too long. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Donna, this is Ted Buckley. I owe you an apology. I had no idea. If you need a reference for anything, work, housing, you call me." I put the phone down and drove. I want to pause again for just a moment, because I know this part of the story hits differently depending on where you're sitting. If you've ever had to hand an eviction notice to your own parent, or even just imagined what that would feel like, you know the weight of it. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't plan some dramatic speech. I just stopped absorbing what was never mine to carry. Here's what I want to know from you. Do you think 30 days was too generous for people who tried to have me declared incompetent? Or should I have given them more time? Tell me in the comments. Okay, let me tell you what happened after that Sunday. The week after the church meeting, things moved fast, but through channels, not chaos. Maggie called on Thursday. The judge had reviewed her motion to dismiss the guardianship petition. He'd seen the identity theft report, the FTC case numbers, Dr. Rourke's medical letter confirming my full cognitive and legal capacity, and the documented financial motive Gerald had for seeking control of my assets. The petition was dismissed without a hearing. The judge added a note to the file. Petitioner appears to have a significant conflict of interest. That same week, Officer Harris at the Ridgemont PD called to confirm the investigation was active. Gerald had been summoned for a formal interview at the station. He hired an attorney, the same cut-rate lawyer from the next county who'd helped him file the guardianship papers. That attorney, after reviewing the evidence Maggie had compiled, withdrew from the case within 48 hours. The fraudulent credit accounts under my name were frozen by all 3 bureaus. The dispute process would take 2 to 3 months, but Russell Briggs at First Union confirmed I would not be held liable for the $47,000. The account opened under Lily's name was closed immediately. Her credit file was wiped clean. Gerald called me on a Wednesday evening. His voice was different, stripped of the authority, the posture, the practiced calm. He sounded like a man standing at the edge of something he couldn't talk his way out of. "Donna, please. I'm going to jail. I'm your father." I was standing in the kitchen, washing Lily's dinner plate. I held the phone against my ear and watched the soap bubbles slide off the ceramic. "You should have thought about that before you stole from your granddaughter." I hung up. I finished the dishes. I dried my hands. and I felt nothing that needed forgiving. The social fallout in a small town doesn't arrive all at once. It seeps, like water finding cracks in a foundation. Patricia tried to attend Wednesday prayer group the following week. Glenda Morrison told me about it later, gently, like she was reporting the weather. Your mother came in and sat down. Nobody moved, but nobody sat next to her either. She left before the opening prayer. It wasn't cruelty. It was something quieter and worse. The silence of people who didn't know what to say to a woman who'd watched her husband steal her daughter's identity and chosen to look the other way. Danielle deleted the drama queen post, but screenshots had already circulated through the Ridgemont grapevine, text chains, group messages, the quiet machinery of a community processing a scandal. A coworker at the convenience store where Danielle worked part-time asked her directly, "So your dad really opened cards in your niece's name?" Danielle put in her notice that Friday. Patricia called me once. I answered because I thought it might be about logistics. The move out. "You've destroyed this family," she said. I was folding Lily's laundry. Small shirts, small socks. "No, Mom. You watched it happen. And you chose the wrong side." She hung up. Gerald and Patricia moved out of 412 Maple Lane on day 24. 6 days ahead of the deadline. They rented a single-wide trailer in Milford, the next town over. I didn't see them leave. I was at work. Danielle had moved out after 1 week, went to stay with a friend in Columbus. I walked through the empty house that evening. 12 years of living, nail holes in the walls, carpet dents where furniture had been. The kitchen smelled like Patricia's coffee. The recliner dent was still in the living room carpet. I didn't feel happy. I felt lighter. There's a difference. The house sold in 6 weeks. A young couple from Dayton, first-time buyers, excited about the porch in the backyard. They offered $178 and I accepted. After closing costs, realtor commission, and Maggie's legal fees, I walked away with just under $150,000. Not a fortune, but more than I'd ever had in one place. I used it carefully. First, paid off my hospital bills in full. Second, put down a deposit on a 2-bedroom apartment in Grover City, close to Maggie's office, close to a good elementary school for Lily, 30 minutes from Ridgemont, but far enough that the air felt different. Third, opened a 529 education savings account in Lily's name, real this time, in her name, for her future, with only my signature on it. Lily started at the new school on a Monday. She wore her purple backpack and held my hand across the parking lot. That afternoon, she came home and looked around the apartment. Small kitchen, narrow hall, her bedroom barely big enough for the bed and a bookshelf. "This apartment is smaller, Mama." "I know, but it's ours. Really ours." She thought about that for a second. Then she went to her room and started taping her drawings to the wall. I transferred to the day shift at a hospital in Grover City. The pay was slightly less, but I slept every night. I ate dinner with my daughter. I watched the sun go down from a window that belonged to no one but me. A week after we moved, a letter arrived. No return address. Inside, a $50 gift card to Target and a handwritten note on pale blue stationery. Helen told me once, "That girl will know when it's time to stand up." She was right. Glenda. I read it twice. Then I put it in the drawer beside my bed, where I keep the things that matter. 3 months later, the world looked different from the inside out. Gerald accepted a plea deal. The district attorney charged him with 1 count of identity theft, a felony under Ohio law, given the amount and the fact that one victim was a minor. His attorney negotiated it down: 2 years probation, mandatory financial counseling, full restitution, though with Gerald's income, that would take years. A permanent criminal record. He didn't go to prison. He was 61, first offense, and the DA's office had bigger cases. But the record followed him. When he applied for a part-time maintenance job at a motel in Milford, they ran a background check. He didn't get it. He eventually found work stocking shelves at a farm supply store 20 miles away. Patricia stayed with him. I wasn't surprised. She'd chosen that side a long time ago. I heard through Glenda that Patricia told people at her new church, a different one in Milford, that I'd had a breakdown and turned on the family. Some people believed her. Some didn't. It didn't matter to me anymore. Danielle never called. I never called Danielle. There was no tearful reconciliation. No scene at a coffee shop where we hugged and cried and promised to do better. Sometimes that's how it ends. Not with a door slamming, but with a door that simply stays closed. I didn't hate them. Any of them. Hate requires energy I'd rather spend elsewhere. On Lily's homework, on my patience, on the small garden I started on the apartment balcony. Cherry tomatoes and basil. Lily watered them every morning before school. I don't carry them anymore. That's the truest thing I can say. I set them down, and my arms remember what it feels like to be empty and free. I want to tell you what I learned, not as advice, just as what happened to me. I learned that the people who call you dramatic are usually the ones doing the most damage. Because if they can make you doubt your own reaction, they never have to answer for their actions. Every time I got sick, every time I was tired, every time I asked a question, dramatic. It's a word designed to make you smaller. And I spent years letting it work. I learned that owning something on paper means nothing if you don't protect it. I owned that house for 12 years and never once acted like it was mine. I let people live in it rent-free, let them rearrange the furniture, let them call it the family house, until I almost believed it too. Generosity without boundaries isn't generosity. It's an open door with no lock. I learned that checking your credit report, and your child's, is not paranoid. It's not dramatic. It's parenting. If I had looked 3 years earlier, I would have caught the first card. If I had looked 6 months earlier, Lily's name would never have been touched. I check it every quarter now. It takes 10 minutes. And I learned that family is not a word that gives anyone the right to steal from you, lie about you, or try to take your freedom. Blood is not a contract. Love is not a lease. And the people who use the word family to keep you quiet are usually the ones with the most to hide. Setting a boundary is not revenge. It's the first step toward peace. Lily asked me last week if she'd ever see Grandpa again. I told her the truth. I don't know, baby, but I know you're safe. She nodded, picked up her crayon, and went back to drawing. That was enough. It's a Tuesday evening. The apartment is quiet. Lily sits at the kitchen table, bent over a sheet of white paper with her crayons spread around her like a tiny artist's studio. I'm at the sink, washing the last of the dinner plates. The window above the faucet looks out over the parking lot, and beyond it, a row of maple trees just starting to turn. Mama, look. I dry my hands and walk over. She holds up the drawing. 2 people standing in front of a small house. The taller one has brown hair and is smiling. The shorter one is holding the taller one's hand. There are flowers in the yard, red and purple, and a yellow sun in the corner with rays that extend to the edges of the page. That's us, Mama. It is. She goes back to adding details. A cat, apparently. We don't have a cat. But in Lily's world we do, and that's fine. I go back to the sink. The water runs warm over my hands. My grandmother Helen used to say something. She'd say it while she was hanging laundry or shelling peas or doing the 100 small things that held a house together. She'd say, "A house is just walls, Donna. Home is who you protect inside them." I spent 12 years protecting the wrong people inside the wrong walls. I made excuses for people who wouldn't make room for me. I called it love. I called it duty. I called it family. Now I have 2 rooms, a daughter who draws pictures of us, and a door I lock every night. Not because I'm afraid, but because for the first time, what's inside is truly mine. My father asked, in that church fellowship hall, in front of 25 people, "Who's dramatic now?" I didn't answer him then. But I'll answer now. No one. Because I don't live in his story anymore. I live in mine. Thank you for staying with me through all of it. If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you that you have the right to protect yourself and the people who depend on you, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed yet, I'd love to have you here. I read every comment, and I want to hear from you. Has anyone in your family ever crossed a line you thought they never would? What did you do? Or what do you wish you'd done? There's another story waiting for you in the description. I think you'll understand exactly why I chose it. Take care of yourselves, and take care of your boundaries.